New Writer Podcast, episode 22, weekly update for June 20th, 2015. I'm your host, Matt Brotherton, author of the Seven Keys Saga and other works of speculative fiction, and this is what I've been up to. So, I've been on vacation this week from my day job, which means I haven't actually done a whole lot of anything. I've done a little bit of writing, some finish-up work, some last-minute polishing on Seven Keys 5, which has gone pretty well. And I'm really happy with the results of that. My editor and I are still working on it. I don't have a release date yet, but I'm hoping to have one soon. So keep an eye out for that. Other than that, I've actually started working on something a little different with my writing. I know I told you guys I was working on a romance novel, and I am. But I've taken a little bit of a back burner from that because writing romance is hard, and I've actually found maybe a potential collaborator for it. Sorry, it gets hot in here when I close the window and the door and turn off the fan and all that good stuff. But I didn't want that noise bugging you guys. Sorry about that. So keep up. I'll be drinking a lot of water. For those of you who have seen the interviews with Hector Manuel and Eric Pierce, you probably know that I have a background as a role-playing game enthusiast. I actually started playing Dungeons & Dragons when I was about 10 years old with my older brother, and eventually got into a live-action role-playing game called LARP. And in 2003, and for about 10 years, I ran Eldrinth as the head story marshal and games president. So I actually have a background in role-playing games. A lot of my writing is heavily influenced by that. I love reading books that take place in game worlds, and have for a while intended to write some Eldrinth-based books. I just never really got around to doing that. But I realized the other day that live-action role-playing games are kind of this huge market that no one really pays enough attention to. And I love it. I love LARP, guys. I'm that kind of nerd. I actually have weapons. I fought with foam swords. I have armor. I have garb. I have all that stuff. I love live action role playing games. And this past week, my older brother, who is a professional game designer, actually got me back into wanting to write about LARP. And really, it's not even his fault. I actually started it because I read a book called Leaving Mundania, which is a really great non-fiction journalistic study of live-action role-playing games here in the United States and in Europe. And it made me realize how much I love just the experience of LARP and sharing it with others and helping create an interactive story world. I also love writing. And so I thought about to myself, how do I take those two passions and mix them together? It's actually, my sister-in-law asked me once if I could do anything, if money was no object, what would I do? And I told her I would play Eldrinth. That's what I would do. The whole point of that is when you have something that you have that passion about, you're supposed to find a way to monetize it. And I think I have. I love live-action role-playing games, and I love tabletop role-playing games. I love role-playing games. And I think in the current world, especially the gaming world, we tend to look at games as something that has to be developed for a huge budget with a huge player base in mind and continuing ongoing campaigns and just spending a lot of money to build something bigger than ourselves. But when I look back on my role-playing history, some of my favorite moments in LARP have come from just a small group, seriously in character, and having just this great moment of creating story together. So I want to bring that onto a larger scale and give everybody the tools to have that. And I know, one of the things that makes European LARPs so much more inclusive, so much bigger than American LARPs, is the level of what's the word I'm looking for here? In game terms, physical representation, immersion is what I'm looking for. So the immersion level is bigger there because they spend lots of money on outfits and setting and all of that stuff. But I've also always found that the true immersion comes from a love of your character, the story you're telling with fellow players, and the sense of community that develops from it. In the past, I've experienced role-playing as both a player and a game master running a game. And I've noticed two very important things. Players always want more, and game masters have a hard time giving it to them because of logistics. Now, you're asking me, what does this have to do with writing, Matt? Well, I'm going to tell you. I have decided I would like to write pre-made modules for live-action role-playing games, similar to the way you can go out and buy like a Dungeons & Dragons dungeon crawl for your D&D characters and modify it to fit your campaign and your world. And so in pursuit of that, I actually went looking to discover if there was a generic LARP system, like the D20 system or GURPS for tabletop, and found that there have been several attempts to create one, but none of them are actually very good. I've looked into quite a few of them, and if you're watching this or listening to this and you actually have some experience with some generic LARP systems that you think would be awesome, go ahead and email me at mabrotherton@mabrotherton.com, because I would love to hear about them. So I can maybe not have to rebuild the stone. But what I'm actually doing right now, and this is where my brother comes in, is I am creating a generic LARP system. So I've been doing a lot of work on that, a lot of writing rules and things like that, figuring out game balance and math and stuff like that, all the crap that goes on behind the scenes. And I think I've come up with kind of a business plan around that also. Like, I want to create this generic LARP system that can be modified slightly in different ways to create different styles of game. Like, you have just your basic generic LARP rules, and then with a few tweaks, you add in spells and you have a fantasy LARP. Or you have an urban fantasy LARP, if that's the thing you're wanting to go for. With a little bit of modification to the storyline and the characters going on around you, you have a Lovecraftian LARP or a Deadlands style Weird West LARP. And that's something, like, I really love the project, and I've gotten really excited about it and really passionate about it. I've spent a lot of time this week working on it, when I probably should have been writing fiction, but I am writing. It's just a completely different style of writing. And I think where I'm at now, after, 15 years of game building experience for live action role playing games, plus a few hours of brainstorming with my brother and starting to put together mechanics, I think I'm at a place where I'm ready to start fluffing that into a full-fledged system instead of just the skeleton of a system. I actually have a lot of previous work in LARPs that I can steal ideas from and pirate from to make this new game. And the business idea is I intend to give the core role-playing game system away for dirt cheap or free. I'm not sure exactly how much I'm going to charge for it yet. I might make it free. I might make it permanently free. I might not. I haven't decided on that yet. It depends on how much time and work go into actually developing the book from here. But I think it's time for the gaming world to embrace the ebook. And I remember when e-readers first came out, I got really excited. Because as a Dungeons & Dragons player, I was carrying 30 or 40 of these huge, heavy, hardback books with me every week to my gaming sessions. And Wizards of the Coast never really embraced the ebook. You can now buy most of these games as PDFs, but they're clunky. They don't have the interlinking systems that you can do with a Mobi file or an EPUB file. They don't have the... They don't make use of the technology of the ebook, and the PDF files are still like 20 freaking bucks, which is insane when the hardback costs 30 and a PDF costs 20. So what I want to do is I want to take the concept of the self-publishing indie world, what we've learned to do with fiction, and commoditize it and make it more affordable to reach a larger mass audience and have broader appeal. I want to do the same thing with role-playing books. I want to create a role-playing system with the book designed specifically for the e-reader device. for tablets and portable. I want it to be Mobi file and EPUB files. I want it to be using the technology. I want you to be able to tap a link to go to a different section. I want to integrate all of those things. And what I really want is to bring the experience of community and interactive storytelling that I've experienced with different live action role-playing games into something that anyone can access. Like, when I first started thinking about the idea, what got me thinking about it was I got invited to a How to Host Your Own Murder Mystery, which I did not go to because it was very short notice and I'm a LARPer. So I like to have the right costume and the right props and get into character and all that stuff. But at its core, the How to Host Your Own Murder Mystery style party games are a one-shot LARP. That's what they are. You have pre-generated characters, pre-generated bad guys. It's a one-shot live-action role-playing game. That's what it is. And I think at that level, everyone can access LARP, and you can take that same concept and move it to a broad variety. Like, for example, instead of having, say, a murder mystery cozy scenario, why not have a slasher scenario where you and your friends are out at a cabin in the woods and someone out there happens to be a giant serial killer with a machete, taking you guys out one at a time? Or why not, like, Council of Elrond style LARP scenario? So what I wanted to do was I wanted to build a core rule system that I could then take and apply different stories to and make that core rule system something that was open enough that others could take and do it too. The other side of running LARPs that I've learned is a pain in the butt is the logistics of it. It's actually a logistical nightmare. Running a live action role-playing game is a lot of work. The more players you have, the harder it gets. You have to keep track of a lot of things. Even in a very simple system like Eldorinth, you have to keep track of just a ton of stuff, and it's a nightmare. It's a headache, and a lot of things slip through the cracks. People don't get taken care of the way they need to. So again, I wanted to look at the Dungeons & Dragons module, which is you have a bunch of people playing the same game, but they play it in their small groups together and rarely get together for bigger events, but they could. You could theoretically run a game with 50 or 60 people, and that would still be a lot of work for a GM, but it could be done. So when I sat down to start creating my own live-action role-playing system that could be generic and fit to multiple different genres, I thought, I want to have a system where a group of friends, a gaming group, can play this game on their own and not need the support of a giant organization. And really, thus, I wouldn't have to run a giant organization to get the game off the ground. So that's what I've been working on. I've been working on creating rules and building a core book. I've got a little bit of a skeleton. Right now I'm kind of brainstorming what skills go into it. The core rules that I'm building are actually going to be a combat list system. It's going to be stat-based, hit points, my abilities versus your abilities target numbers. But I also want that system to be able to be a foundation system that can be built on with a buffer combat system. So you would have you have a baseline like stat versus stat, no combat game, and then a buffer game, and eventually what I would like to do is actually add another level on top of that, which is like paintball and airsoft. So that the one system of rules could, with minor segments of modules added on top of it, literally play any game out there. So that's what I've been working on this week. It's not the best use of my time as a fiction writer, but I love the project. I love doing it, and I think passion is a really important part of writing. And one of the reasons I was having a hard time with the romance story is I love romance stories. I love rom-coms, especially like Paul Rudd style, just really cheesy romantic comedies. But I'm not good at writing them, and I'm not passionate about writing them. So it was really hard for me to keep working on that, which is probably why this project took over, and I didn't get a whole lot done this week, because it took me a long time to realize that was the problem with the romance, was that it wasn't my passion. It's not what I love to write. It's not what I love to do. So now I am focusing on this. I'm probably going to be talking about this for a little while. I'm probably going to try to do some interviews with other writers who work in like a gamer environment. I think if you are a writer and you have not played a role-playing game, it's something you should look into. Learning to build interactive fiction and keep players hooked is a really good skill to have. I will say, I think part of the reason I'm such a pantser is because when you're running a live action role playing event or a Dungeons and Dragons game, for example, you never know what the players are going to do. You literally never know what the characters are going to do. So you can't plan too far in advance. You have to be ready to roll with the punches and roll on the fly and change things to keep the players engaged. And I think that's translated over into my writing. When I write, I have to keep my characters engaged, which means I have to keep finding ways to bring them back into the fold. So, writing-wise, I have done about 5,000 words total this week, which is not good, especially considering I was not working this week. I was on vacation. But I'm going to rack it up to the fact that I was actually on vacation. So, I guess I was on vacation from being a writer, too. Sales have been okay this week. I've had a couple. The free downloads of Choices have gone up again, which is good. I got pretty low there for a while, and it seems to have risen back up fairly consistently. Book 5 will be coming out soon. I don't know exactly when yet, but if you would like to know, you can head over to mabrotherton.com/newsletter and sign up for that. You'll get a free copy of Fallout, which is the second book in the Seven Keys saga, as well as a free copy of my short story, Dinosaur Alien Invasion, and you will get notifications and updates as to when Book 5 comes out. The 5-book box set will also come out at about the same time as Book 5, maybe a little afterwards. But that is where I'm at for this week. And don't forget, if you're in the U.S. especially, I don't know if this is celebrated worldwide, but I know it is here in the U.S., Sunday is Father's Day, so don't forget that. It's kind of a big deal. My dad is really important to me. He's my editor as well as probably my best friend. So, that's what's going on for me this weekend. I'm going to be hanging out with my dad. So thank you guys for listening. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next Saturday. Good night. Well, good morning, because this goes out in the morning. Goodbye.